500 years ago, a man who had lost everything sat alone in exile and wrote something dangerous. Not a guide to success, not a philosophy of happiness, but a blueprint for how life actually works. His name was Niccolò Machiavelli, and what he discovered was not meant for comfort. It was meant for clarity, because life is not what you were told. It is not fair, it is not moral, and it is not designed to reward good intentions. Life rewards something else: accuracy, the ability to see reality without the filter of what you wish were true. Most people never reach this point. They live inside a story where hard work guarantees success, where loyalty is returned, where good people eventually win. But reality does not operate on stories. It operates on forces, invisible, indifferent, and precise. Machiavelli spent his life studying those forces, not in theory, but in survival. He watched powerful families rise and collapse overnight. He saw loyalty vanish under pressure. He saw kindness used and then discarded. And from all of this, he reached a conclusion most people spend their entire lives avoiding. People are not what they claim to be. They are what they do when it matters. Under normal conditions, people appear loyal, they appear honest, they appear good. But change the conditions. Add pressure, add fear, add uncertainty, and something else appears: self-interest. Not because people are evil, but because self-preservation is the strongest force in human psychology. Stronger than love, stronger than loyalty, stronger than promises. Machiavelli didn't judge this. He understood it the way you understand gravity. Gravity doesn't hate you, but if you ignore it, you still fall. And human nature works the same way. Ignore it, and you get hurt. Misunderstand it, and you get used. Deny it, and you build your life on something that cannot hold weight. That's why most people are constantly surprised. Surprised by betrayal, surprised by failure, surprised when effort doesn't pay off. Not because life is unpredictable, but because they never learned how it actually works. Machiavelli saw something most people refuse to see: that life is not controlled by one force, but by two. The first is what you control: your decisions, your discipline, your awareness, the part of you that acts. He called this virtù, not virtue in the moral sense, but strength, capability, the ability to shape your circumstances instead of being shaped by them. The second force is everything you don't control: chance, timing, luck, accidents, the sudden collapse or unexpected opportunity. He called this Fortuna, and Fortuna does not care about you. It does not reward effort. It does not respect fairness. It moves like a river, sometimes calm, sometimes destructive, always indifferent. And here is the truth that changes everything. Half of your life is controlled by Fortuna, which means no matter how disciplined you are, no matter how intelligent, no matter how prepared, there are things you cannot control. And most people spend their lives fighting that reality, complaining about it, resisting it, blaming others for it. But Machiavelli's insight was different. He didn't try to control the uncontrollable. He focused on what remained, the other half. Because while you cannot stop the storm, you can decide who you are when it arrives. Most people waste this. They spend their energy on things that don't matter: arguments, distractions, validation, things that feel important, but build nothing. And when life tests them, they have nothing left. No discipline, no resilience, no internal structure. So when the pressure comes, they collapse. But there are others, rare people, who understand this differently. They prepare, not for comfort, but for chaos. They build skills that cannot be taken. They develop discipline that does not depend on mood. They create stability inside themselves. So when Fortuna strikes, they don't panic, they adapt, because they are not fragile. And this is where Machiavelli becomes dangerous, because he forces you to confront something uncomfortable. You are not judged by your intentions, you are judged by your results. The world does not see your effort, it sees your outcome. And people do not respond to who you think you are. They respond to what you demonstrate. This is why appearance matters, not in a superficial sense, but in a functional one. People don't experience your thoughts. They experience your behavior, your tone, your consistency, your presence. And from that, they form a conclusion. Machiavelli understood this clearly. He wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." And that gap between who you are and how you are perceived determines everything. Most people try to close this gap by explaining themselves, defending themselves, proving their worth through words. But that doesn't work because people don't believe explanations. They believe patterns, consistency, repetition, results. That's what builds trust. That's what builds power. Not what you say, but what you repeatedly show. And this leads to one of the most important shifts you can make. Stop trying to be understood. Start becoming undeniable. Because when your actions are consistent, your results are visible, your presence is stable, there is nothing left to argue about. At that point, you don't need validation. You become self-evident. But most people never reach this level because they fall into a cycle Machiavelli observed not just in individuals, but in entire civilizations. Strength creates order. Order creates comfort. Comfort creates weakness. Weakness leads to collapse. And then the cycle begins again. This happens to nations, but it also happens to people. You struggle, you build, you achieve stability, and then slowly, without noticing, you relax, you stop pushing, you stop improving, you become comfortable. And comfort begins to weaken you. Your discipline fades, your edge disappears, your awareness dulls, until eventually, life forces you back into struggle. And if you are not prepared, you break. Machiavelli's solution was simple, but not easy. Do not wait for hardship. To become strong, create pressure intentionally. Challenge yourself. Push beyond comfort. Maintain discipline, even when you don't need it, because strength that is not maintained is lost, and the world does not pause while you rebuild it. Another truth he understood is that necessity reveals reality. When everything is easy, you don't know who you are. But when things become difficult, when pressure increases, when choices matter, that's when your true nature appears. Your habits, your mindset, your limits, everything becomes visible. And this is why some people grow through adversity, while others are destroyed by it. Because adversity does not change you, it reveals you. Machiavelli himself lived this, stripped of power, ignored by society, left in isolation. But instead of collapsing, he used it. He studied, he wrote, he refined his thinking, not for recognition, not for reward, but because the work itself was necessary. And in doing so, he created something that outlived him. Which brings us to the final truth. Life will take things from you, your plans, your expectations, sometimes even your identity. People will leave, situations will change, certainty will disappear. And none of that is under your control. But one thing is, who you become, in response to it, you can become bitter, passive, resentful, or you can become precise, aware, unshakable. You can build a mind that does not depend on circumstances, a mindset that adapts, that learns, that continues, because in the end, that is what life demands. Not perfection, not comfort, but strength. The strength to see clearly. The strength to act despite uncertainty. The strength to rebuild again and again. Machiavelli never promised a good life. He showed something more valuable, a real one. And once you understand it, you stop waiting for life to become easier, and you start becoming stronger. Pause. That is what life is.